Thank you. Well, I want to start just by telling you a quick little story. So, a woman brings a baby boy in to see the doctor, and the doctor takes the baby out of her arms, measures him, weighs him, and he starts to frown, and he asks her, "Is this baby breastfed?" And she nods her head yes, and he frowns, scowls again, and then he finally turns to the woman and says, "Would you mind unbuttoning your blouse?" And so she does, and he starts sort of prodding and poking and rolling her breasts. And finally, after a few minutes of this treatment, he says, "Well, of course this baby's underweight. There's no milk in these breasts." And she says, "I'm his grandmother, but I'm really glad I brought him to his appointment today." And I tell this story because to me, this is sort of indicative of how kinesiology works. I feel like the information is always right there in front of you, but sometimes we come at things with our own preconceived ideas of what something is or what it is not, and we don't ask the questions. And kinesiology is all about asking the right questions so that we get the answers that we are looking for. So when I talk with groups of women, I find that most of us are familiar with things like the law of attraction and the secret, and we have vision boards pinned up in our offices, and we have lipsticked affirmations across our mirrors. And if that worked, we should all be nearly perfect, right? We would all have all of those things that we are asking for all the time. We would have the body and the job and the money and the career and the joy that we are writing about all the time. So why aren't we as healthy, wealthy, and wise as we are saying and writing and thinking we are? So this isn't to say that these techniques don't work, but looking at why they don't seem to work as quickly or effectively, or for some people, the way they do for others. So I myself am a big book geek, and Aldous Huxley is one of my favorite authors, and he's the author of Brave New World. And if you're not familiar with that novel, one of the statements in that is working with this utopian society where people are conditioned to believe certain things in order to maintain their place in society. And one of the things they say there is that 100 repetitions, 3 nights a week for 4 years, 62,400 repetitions equal one truth. That's how they socialize people in this world. So if that was true, that 62,400 repetitions equal one truth, what number are you at with your affirmations? And this is a fictitious number, but it gives us this idea of how many times do you actually look at that vision board or read that affirmation. The problem with positive thinking as a way of changing behavior is that it's usually very superficial. We read the affirmation or we look at the board, but what we really end up with is this veneer of positive thinking that kind of covers over this deep well of negativity, fear, and self-loathing at its core, right? So why does this happen? Well, part of the reason why this happens is we go through this process of socializing children. And when we socialize children, we end up explaining a lot to them why they're wrong and what they need to do in order to be acceptable. And this isn't to pick on parents. I'm a mother of 3. Parenting is hard. It's that we have to teach them not to be little barbarians in order for them to not die, right? So we're always telling them not to run in traffic, not to do this, not to put that in their mouths, all of those kind of things. But children have no filters in their brain. If you tell a little child something incredulous, you tell little children, "I've got your nose," they believe you. So they don't have any little system built in there that goes, "This isn't true," or "This doesn't make sense to me." Right from a young age, they start taking in what we say at face value. Now, by the time children are hitting ages about 11 and 12, they've got some filters there. And so when new information comes in, they tend to take that information and compare it to what they already know to be true in order to decide where to place that information. And if you don't believe me, find a kid who is 12, 13 years old who's really into something. Like my son right now is really into dinosaurs again, or a kid that's into hockey. And you can give them a stat or some new piece of information, and they take it, they file it, they can tell you exactly how that fits with what they already know, but you try and tell them something that's new or something that seems on a subject that they're not interested in, and it is in one ear, out the other, gone, right? It's easy for us to take a new piece of information with something that we already believe to be true. It's very hard for new information to stick. And so we have to take a look at what messages are stuck there as truths. What filters have we obtained by that age? So that brings me to a question that I like to ask when I'm speaking in groups, which is, what are some of your truths? And if you don't have any that spring immediately to mind, usually what I would say is write this sentence on a piece of paper. And this sentence goes, if I'm blank enough, I'll be okay. So some of the things that end up getting popped into that blank: smart, pretty, fun, funny, quiet, good, strong, thin, likable. Whatever the values of your household or community are, that tends to show what will show up in there. So one of mine, for instance, is smart. If I'm smart enough, I'll be okay, right? And so I place a lot of value on being able to answer a question or something. And if I can't, wow, that really doesn't feel good, because I have these old filters that say I need to be smart in order to be okay. So when we are offered the things that we dream about, when they come into conflict with one of these filters, we usually respond with something like, I can't accept that. And this happens all the time. You see people who have this idea of what they want their ideal career to be, and somebody basically offers it to them, and the first thing they say is, I couldn't do that. I couldn't accept that. That's too much. Or somebody who has filters built up around, I'm not pretty enough, or if I'm thin enough, I'll be okay. And you compliment them on how gorgeous they look today, and the first thing they're going to say is, oh, no, I'm not. Right? This isn't modesty. It's evidence of deep stress around the issue. They literally can't integrate that information. So when we have this thin layer of positive thinking that just covers over all this negative thinking, we become paralyzed in our action. If you've ever read Bruce Lipton's work, he talks about cells in petri dishes and how they will move towards food, which is love, right? Nurturing. Not that food is love, but the idea that things that nurture the body, and away from toxins or away from fear. And he shows that on a cellular level, we cannot be in love and in fear at the same time. So as long as we have these negative beliefs stuck to the things that we think we want, we can't move forward and accept them. And so what I'm saying is that as long as we have negative beliefs associated to these things that we think we want, it's very hard for us to move forward. We get caught in this push-pull. But in my field, we call this deep switching. And deep switching is electrical scrambling in the brain based on the truths that we think we know, based on these coping mechanisms that we've developed in childhood. And we access these through specialized kinesiology. So specialized kinesiology, which is what I work with in my office all the time, works with muscle testing. And the idea behind muscle testing is that we use muscles as a biofeedback mechanism to read out where stress is in the body. The idea is that your body always knows what's wrong. Your body knows how to fix it. It's just sometimes there's too much stress on something for us to do it, for the body to do it itself. So we need to intervene a little bit and help to move some of that stress and be able to move on from there. So that's deep switching, and deep switching can be hard to figure out on your own. Another thing that comes up often when I'm working with people is what we would call superficial switching. And if you've ever had a moment when you've been really stressed out about something, you're just having a lousy morning, and maybe you're running late, and you finally get to wherever you're going, and you go to introduce your husband, your partner, your kids to somebody, and you forget their name. Or you're driving along and you're going somewhere you've been 20 times before and you suddenly forget how to get there. This is superficial switching. It's electrical scrambling. It's like you've got too many gadgets plugged in the kitchen and suddenly you've just blown the circuit. And usually your brain will recoup from that, but it can leave you feeling scrambled or disoriented or like you're stuttering or the word is at the tip of your tongue but you can't get it out, right? So I've actually put together a little video for you guys, And hopefully it is up tonight. We were having some other technical difficulties at my place earlier with uploading this movie that we did yesterday, but it will show how to actually go through and work with your superficial switches yourself in about 5 minutes, just to kind of clear all of that and so that you can feel really centered and focused in your day. And that should be up on my YouTube channel tonight if you just go onto YouTube and search for Alexis Costello, or it should be on Happily Holistic's Facebook page, which is Happily Holistic Be Your Best, if you're still on Facebook later on. And I will go in and share it with this group as well as soon as I can be sure that it's uploaded. So what we can do is create a bit of an action plan from these couple things. So if you are serious about moving ahead with your goals, then the first thing you want to do is use these tools that I describe in this little video to keep your electricity balanced on a basic level, and to be able to have coordination between the hemispheres of your brain, between the front and back of your brain, so that all of the nerves are flowing properly, so that you're not overloading the circuit all the time, and you can be really focused and clear in your intention. The second thing you can do is examine your enoughs to see where your deeper switches lie. So what truths in you are you contradicting with your goals? And then you need to, 3, figure out how to get around those switches. So you can have sessions with a practitioner who works with core beliefs. That can be someone like me, but it can also be anybody who works with that kind of thing. There's lots of modalities that address core belief issues. You can also sometimes get around it just by rewording your goals, so that you're not triggering those old patterns every time you say them. Or the alternative is you can work with with Huxley's old-fashioned system and try and repeat them 62,400 times to create a new truth and see if that works out for you in the end. And then, of course, there's other things that go along with it. You've discussed the importance of nutrition and things to keep your mind clear and your body clear, which helps you move in line with these goals. But if you can get that electricity really balanced and grounded in your body, it just makes all the difference.